Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining in. Thought I would give you an update on my reading. I guess I did my last update maybe a week or so ago, and I've finished some books since then, and I'm making progress on some others that I'm really excited about. We just got through Mother's Day weekend. And I spent some time with my daughter on Friday, and we had scheduled this thing that we were going to do on Friday, not realizing it was upcoming Mother's Day weekend, but it just worked out that way that I took some time off on Friday, and we went to a pottery class with a pottery wheel, and it was just the two of us with the instructor. And we each made items that we're going to go back in a week or two and glaze, and it was so much fun. It's so relaxing. You're trying to make this vertical piece of ceramic, but it was so tactile. It's the same feeling I get when I'm doing this sewing that I'm trying to do, that you're going to make mistakes, and you're probably doing some things wrong that you might have to do again, but the process itself is so enjoyable. So, speaking of sewing, I'm in my second round of sewing classes that began. I have 2 classes left, so I've had 2 classes, and I am attempting to sew a pair of very simple drawstring shorts, pajama shorts, casual shorts with inset pockets. And yeah, I've made a couple mistakes. Apparently a simple pattern of shorts can be as tough as you can try to make it, and I'm making it tough by sewing the wrong pieces together. But it's been really fun, and I'm excited to try it on my own once I get through this session of classes and try to make another pair on my own. So, okay, reading update. I'm going to move fast through these books because I don't want to keep you forever. So I don't have some of these books because they've already gone back to the library. So I think I have one of them. Yeah, okay. I'll start off talking again about Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld. I really enjoyed it. I talked a little bit about it in one of my videos, and it's a book in 3 parts. It's got that beginning where the main character is within her team of writers at a Saturday Night Live-like show with a guest host who's usually an actor or a singer or some kind of performer. And there might be something that's happening between her and this really famous guest host singer who she wouldn't have thought in a million years, but she thinks it's just a friendship. And the second part was surprising to me. It turns into an epistolary novel where the main character, whose name I'm forgetting, and the guest host connect during the pandemic through, I think it's email and not texting. And that was really fun. I love epistolary novels. I love reading letters and texts and all that stuff. And everybody's tied down during the pandemic in the early part, so they're biding their time, and they start writing each other, and they find that they're really enjoying this, and would it ever develop into something else? And then the last part of the novel is figuring out, will it turn into something else? So I really enjoyed it. I recommend it as a beach read, as a palate cleanser. It would just fit in anywhere. So an airplane book. The next book I want to talk about is the one I actually have, which is Lolly Willows by Sylvia Townsend Warner. This was on my shelves for a long time. I just picked it up randomly a couple weekends ago. I just wanted to dig in. I've already heard about this story. I knew it was about this young woman who has never gotten married. So she's the, what do they call it? I don't know if you call a young woman spinster, but she's not married. She's unmarried, and her father dies. They're living on the farm or out in the country anyway. She goes to live with her brother and his wife and their kids call her Lolly. Her name is Laura. And they call her Aunt Lolly, and she's living in London, and she goes into a bookstore or a store and sees a book, I think, and it has to do with the countryside, and it actually has to do with an actual town. And she just has such a connection. This is the part of the story and in and around this event where I feel like the way that Townsend Warner described it, it's almost like she's having some kind of awakening, that she feels like, I need to be there. I actually need to be in that town. And she goes about moving there, even though everybody in her family thinks it's crazy. So she goes, and it's just the place she wants to be. There are some people that she runs into, and actually even her own nephew, that become a part of this story that I thought was really interesting. Now you'll notice there is a broom on the cover and a cat, which might indicate witches, a story about witches. And there is an element at the end that is revealed to you, which is actually not as obvious as I thought it would be, that has to do with witches, but I don't feel like that's the real fun of the story. I really felt like these awakening moments that Lolly has, and then when the nephew comes and lives in the town because he feels like he wants to be there, and how it changes her dynamic with the town and how she tries to overcome that. I just felt like her story and her personality and how it's written is the real gem of this story. So I highly recommend, even if even if you've heard about it. Okay, 2 other books that I finished. One was The Pisces by Melissa Broder. I had never heard of Melissa Broder. I have no idea why I added this book to my list of books to get out of the library. But once I put the cover up, you'll see it, and maybe you'll recognize the cover. It's described as erotica. I'm going to say some things about the book that might reveal some things. So if you don't want to hear, I'm not going to reveal any plot or any ending. Spoilers, I mean. That's what they're called, spoilers. But I will talk a little bit about the book. That there's a 38-year-old woman named Lucy, who's the main character. She's broken up with her boyfriend of 9 years, and she is in the middle of a dissertation on Sappho. I don't know very much about Sappho, but I've heard a little more about Sappho after the book After Sappho came out last year, that I want to read. And so she's devastated. Her sister's going away for a couple months. Her sister lives in Venice Beach, so she goes to house sit and a dog sit. Dominic, who's a foxhound, and he has diabetes, and he needs care, daily care. So she goes, she starts a love addiction group therapy, and so you get to meet the characters in that group. I will say about this book, the stuff that I loved, the things that I didn't love so much. Number one, the writing is very enjoyable. There were sentences that I just loved. So well-crafted writing. It's described as erotica. I would say there is lots of graphic sex. So if that's something that you want to skip, then I would skip this book. I guess it was just at a level of graphicness that was just a little bit beyond what I would normally read. So that's me. And there's a merman. So the merman thing is, I feel, done really well. Because, I mean, he's described as somebody who you would imagine like stinky and scaly and things like that. I just felt like what happened in the last third of the book was disturbing to me. It involves the dog a little bit. So yeah, just know that those kinds of things are disturbing to me. So Melissa Broder, though, I would look for another Melissa Broder book, and I will be, to read her writing again. And then the next book is Trespasses by Louise Kennedy. Okay, I don't rate books, but like on my notes of books, I put this down as excellent. It might be the best book I've read so far this year. It's set in the 1970s in a town outside of Belfast, and the main character is Kushla. She's a 24-year-old teacher in a parochial school. She lives with her mom. Their father's just died a couple years ago. She has a brother. He's running the family bar. She meets someone who, I'll just say, is someone who's going to be a problem for her to have a relationship with. And and it turns out, yeah, it's a problem. And she has to keep it secret. The descriptions of how their relationship develops, how she feels about him, I just thought were wonderful to read. So she's a school teacher of, I take it like third graders, and the descriptions of the relationships she forms with some of these students. Some of the students, this is a working class town, so some of them are in more dire straits than others. And she forms a closer relationship with some of those kids and their families, and what happens in those families, and her relationship with them is just endearing and heartbreaking. This is in the time of the Troubles, the conflict between Protestants and Catholics and militaristic groups. There are British soldiers in this area, and the way that Louise Kennedy puts you in the setting and the setting just being something that's happening in the daily lives of these people is just, I felt so well done. So highly recommend Trespasses. What else? Oh, what I'm reading now. Okay, I am still reading Dr. Thorne. I'm past the part of it feeling clunky, and now we're just right into what these books from the Barsetshire Chronicles are about. Humorous. It is about families and status. There is the religious component with the whole political hierarchy of religion in this area. And we're certainly talking about people who need to get married and the people who have money that are marriageable. These are stories about individuals who are in love with perhaps a person who doesn't have money, and that's the person they would really love to marry. So it's I'm in the parts where it is total trollop, and some of the old characters from some of the previous characters from the other books have popped up. I'm also reading Monsters by Claire Dieter, and I'm about halfway through this. This is the nonfiction book that talks about famous people, performers, artists, and I'm trying to think if there's any others that have behaved badly, that have done criminal things, and with whom we have a relationship with because we love their art. So in this, she breaks it down into different categories and talks about different people. She starts off talking about Roman Polanski, which was interesting to hear because I know less about Roman Polanski. So it starts off with him, and then she talks about Woody Allen and Michael Jackson. But then she goes on to talk about people that where it's come out now that they might have been racist and been verbal about it in their time. So I'm just getting into that part, but she's coming at it from a fan's perspective, and it's an interesting study. She has a couple thesis. Is that what it's called? Or I'm forgetting the word, but I hope you know what I mean. It's a little rambling at times. She does go in a couple same circles, but I'm just enjoying the book for what it is. It is a lot of food for thought for me, and I like seeing it on the page. And then I am reading and really enjoying this memoir called Stay True by Hui-Su. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his first name right. But I saw this book. It was either in the New Yorker or the New York Times, and I'd put it on hold. I don't think my library had purchased it yet. And then I got it just recently when it came in. In the meantime, it's won the Pulitzer Prize. It's about Hui is a Taiwanese college student in this part of his life that he's talking about in the 90s in Berkeley. So that scene, first of all, it's in the 90s, right? So this is not the era of smartphones or even a lot of computers. We're talking also about a lot about music, and it's still in the form of CDs and records. He becomes friends with a guy who he never felt like he could ever be friends with if he was thinking about the people around him that he has something in common with. And that is a Japanese American named Ken. And that's the main reason is that Ken is very American, very Americanized, and Hui really isn't. He's very connected to his Taiwanese culture, and so is his family. So it begins there. We are now in his senior year. The writing, you can tell that Hui has spent a long time writing this book. It's very well crafted. So I am just about half in. I'll have more to say about it, but I really recommend picking up this book. It not only gives you a lot of insight into how all Asians aren't the same, which is a common misconception he talks about. And also you're just dipped into the 90s. It has a strong theme of friendship and what friendship means and how you can develop a friendship between two people or a person he would feel like he couldn't be friends with, and he's exploring that idea, and I just think that's so fascinating. So there you go. There's that. I just recorded a library haul video where because I was at the library yesterday afternoon, and it was one of those things again where I had reserved a lot of books, and they all came in at the same time. So I have a nice dilemma to look through all those books and figure out which ones I'm going to read. So I'll be sharing that soon. I would love to hear if you are digging into any of the books that I mentioned. I only have these here, but also any of the others I mentioned. I would certainly love to hear anyone's experience of reading the Pisces, and of course also Trespasses. So let me know what you're reading. It's just the beginning of the month, so I know a lot of you carve out the books that you're going to read for the month, and I would love to know what those are. And I hope you have a good week. Thanks for joining me again. Hi everyone. I forgot to mention in this video that I just recorded, I wanted to thank everyone that has hit the subscribe button on my new BookTube channel, because I noticed on Mother's Day that I had reached 200 subscribers. And when, it was just, 6 months ago, I guess, that I was wondering if anyone would be subscribing other than my own mother. It's just so extraordinary that I'm connecting with 200 of you out there. So I really appreciate it. Thank you for sticking in there with me during my continuing learning curve. I've just so enjoyed talking with books with all of you, and I absolutely love engaging in your comments. Thanks again.